we're going to talk about how to confidently present hospital indemnity plans to your prospects and clients. Just want to go over a couple of disclaimers. Haven't done a training like this in quite a while. Since we're going to be talking about some products, a couple of different things you guys got to remember. Number one, we're not looking to replace any AHIP or any specific carrier training. And then the main thing, of course, is that we're not endorsed by or affiliated with any of the government agencies. And then most importantly, if you're making a presentation of a hospital indemnity plan during a Medicare Advantage presentation as well, it's important to you that you need permission to contact as well as a documented scope of an appointment form. So very, very important. So what exactly is hospital indemnity? Well, just as the two words come together, it is an insurance policy that will pay a defined amount if a triggering claim arises from an overnight hospital stay. It's typically paid out as a lump sum or it's paid out as a daily benefit. If the plan is a lump sum, basically a good example would be Jane is admitted to the hospital as an inpatient. Her lump sum hospital indemnity will pay her $1,000 as a result of her overnight stay, no matter how many days she's admitted. We generally see the lump sum hospital indemnity plans in the under 65 market. I happen to have one myself. And then the daily benefit is basically designed, the ideology behind it is designed so that it works in unison with the Medicare Advantage plan. It's customizable that way. So paid out as a daily benefit means that Larry is admitted to the hospital and stays for 4 days. His policy pays a daily benefit of $250 for 3 days. Larry's policy will pay him a total benefit of $750. So who is going to be the ideal client? So the ideal client, and part of the reason we started the Facebook group is going to be the Medicare Advantage member, especially someone in a Part B give back plan. And the reason being is they have that little bit of extra money to work with that's going to be credited to their Medicare that can help them purchase ancillaries such as hospital indemnity, cancer, and dental, so that they have a look-alike Medicare supplement plan. It is not a Medicare supplement plan. I want to be crystal clear. I'm not insinuating that. I'm saying a look-alike Medicare supplement plan. People turning age 65 and opting to enroll into an MA or MAPD. Why is that? Because the product, especially through the one that we use the most, is a guaranteed issue for those that are between the ages of 64 and a half and 65 and a half. It's a real huge benefit, especially if you're dealing with somebody with health conditions. And then finally, people opting to stay on work insurance and have a deductible and or co-insurance for hospitalization. It is not uncommon to see a group plan with a $5,000 deductible or a $7,000 deductible. And oftentimes that deductible is put in place as a first dollar for hospitalization. So hospital indemnity plan could help people limit and minimize those exposure. And then the other plan I didn't really reference to, I think it should fall under the Medicare Advantage category, would be somebody in a Medicare savings plan. They kind of got a little popular about 2 years ago, and that's where a hospital indemnity plan would go very well with them because it is a deductible based plan. Who is not the ideal candidate? Big deal here. Who is not the ideal candidate? So really it would be two types of individuals, person who has full Medicaid benefits and somebody who's QMB or QMB plus. Reason being is that this particular individual does not have cost sharing when it comes to Part A and Part B benefits. So to implement a hospital indemnity plan to pay for a hospitalization that they would necessarily not have to pay for to begin with could be misconstrued as a redundancy of benefits. Not really sure that that particular individual would benefit from a hospital indemnity plan. A case or an argument can be made that the benefit that they would receive, that cash amount, could help them with other expenses outside of the actual cost of the hospitalization. But receiving a benefit, depending on what the benefit is, some of these things are, $400 or $500 a day. Person could be in the hospital for a week. That could knock the person out of the Medicaid status. but more importantly, it can knock them out of the benefit status. So absolutely would not at all consider selling hospital indemnity to these folks, the Medicaid and the Q1B people. So how do you present the concept? So that's really the most important thing is how do you present the concept? So we're breaking down our training into two parts. We're trying to keep them in about 15 minutes. And today is going to be, what's the product, who's it fit for, and how do you present it? What's the idea behind it? And then we're going to do a follow-up on Thursday. I'll get into this a little bit deeper in just a second, but we'll do a follow-up on Thursday where all you folks can post all your questions, and then I'll be able to answer it on Thursday and then get into product specifics, because there's more than one way to skin the cat. So how do you present the concept? So as you are discussing and explaining how various products work, and then this is during the conceptual sales phase of the presentation, you want to start talking about the exposures and bring awareness. What we call this planting the seed. So as you start to talk about that, Medicare Advantage plans typically have copays for everything that you do, such as doctor visits and hospitalization. You would also then, in the same sentence, say that they also build and make ancillary products that help people cover and close those gaps when it comes to Medicare Advantage plans. And I probably wouldn't say the word gap because it could be misconstrued on the Medigap side of the equation. So I would probably change the word gap to holes to be a little bit careful. The next thing you want to consider is never say your plan has an exposure to hospitalization or this plan. It's better to say all plans like yours or plans like these, okay? Because when you make it individual to theirs, your plan has an exposure to hospitalization or this plan does. The person then starts to wonder why they would even want to have that plan in the first place. If you're telling me that my plan has an exposure to hospitalization, my mind isn't going to be wrapped around buying another insurance policy to cover the exposure, the hospitalization. My mind is going to be wrapped around as to how can I get a plan that doesn't have an exposure to hospitalization. So it's really all about consumer perception. So just by changing that one word from your or this to all or plans like these makes a significant difference. The next thing you want to consider is to quantify the cost of the hospital stay. You got to make it real, okay? A $350 per day copay for 5 days should be explained just as that. And then by saying, so if you were hospitalized for a week, a month, or a year, as you're being discharged, the hospital is going to present you a bill for $1,750. If you see where I got that number at, that's $350 a day times the 5 days equals the $1,750. Now, they're not going to be wheeled out of the hospital and as they got to the sidewalk, kicked out of the wheelchair and shoved the bill in their pocket. It doesn't work like that. It comes in the mail. But when you put it into that perspective, when you quantify the amount, it raises the person's awareness and their mindset. And now they start to think about, well, $1,750 is a lot of money. I don't know really what I'm going to do about that if that were to happen. The other thing you want to do is you want to not overload information during your initial presentation. You want to keep your conversation tied to the summary of benefits as per CMS rules. But once you start to cross-sell hospital and then also cancer areas, you want to zero in on the points, but tell them not to worry that you have a solution for that. You want to be very casual. So what I would say in this case is I would say the daily copay for your plan, for this plan, is a $350 per day copay for 5 days. And what that means is that if you were hospitalized for a week, a month, or a year, you would receive a bill from the hospital after your discharge for $1,750. But don't worry about that. We have a solution. And if you are like a lot of our other clients, what they have done in the past is for about $40 to $60 a month, they have chosen to pick up a plan that would cover the hospitalization, or at least most of it, in the event that they were hospitalized for a day, a week, a month, or a year. You keep it real cash. You go back in at the end of the presentation after you do the main part And then at that point, you get into the details of the specifics of all the other benefits that the hospital indemnity covers, such as the ER. We can add critical illness, critical injury, and a few other things, ambulance and so forth. The other thing you want to do is you always want to be mindful about putting people in a group setting so they don't feel like they're alone. Okay, this is more of an advanced type of a sales strategy. Sometimes you might want to say something like what many people like yourself have chosen to do, or what some of my other clients have done, and make sure it's real. You don't say things like all of my clients have chosen to buy a hospital indemnity plan, because we all know that's not true. So you want to be careful with your words. You want to be honest and truthful to the best of your ability. So you would say if some of your clients bought hospital plans. You want to verbalize the range, just like I did before. You can say something like, these gap plans will cost you somewhere in the range of $40 to $60 per month. Does that seem reasonable to you? What this is called a soft close. So when you can present a concept to somebody and kind of give them an idea that other people have chosen it, and then this is the range of the cost, what happens and we do this in the final expense space, what happens in the person's mind at that moment when you give them a range, and this is a very powerful negotiation technique, extremely powerful. It's used on a very high level scale. But when you give somebody a range, the 40 to the 60, one or two things are going to happen. They're either going to immediately determine that $40 is too much money, because their mind is going to go to the low part first, and they're going to decide whether or not they can do the low part. It's just how the mind works. If they immediately determine that $40 is too much, then you know that when it comes time to making a presentation to them, you're most likely going to be only able to, or I should say differently, they will most likely only be able to afford either a cancer plan or a hospital plan standalone. The 40 to 60 includes cancer and hospital. We're going to do cancer at another segment. But they automatically go to that. If they don't feel like they can afford it, they will tell you right then and there. If they make a decision in their mind that $40 isn't so bad, or $60 isn't so much, $40 is doable, and somewhere in between, they have already pre-bought the concept of $40 to $60 per month. They would give you the pushback, or at least most of them would give you the pushback right now. So very, very important that we do some soft closes. So just to kind of recap, how do you present the concept? First and foremost, you want to plant the seed. You want to start talking about it as early as possible. Next thing you want to do is you don't want to individualize it. You don't want to say yours and this and that. You'd rather say things like plans like these, or plans that are similar to this one, and things like that. You want to quantify the cost of the hospital stay. You never want to just leave it at $350 a day. You want to kind of give them the realism of what it could be. The next thing you want to do is you want to keep it short and sweet. You don't want to overload them with information. There's a ton of information you're giving them with the summary of benefits, so you certainly don't want to overload. There's a time and a place at the end where you can give them, or you have to give them, all the details, and we're going to go over that in the next training module. And then finally, you want to put people in a group-based setting. You don't want them to feel like they're all alone, okay? Humans are herd animals by definition. We tend to feel better when others are going through what we're going through. We're able to relate a little bit better that way, as opposed to just feeling all alone and individual and isolated and nomadic. And then, of course, you want to verbalize the range of the cost. I'm a big fan of doing that. We pretty much built out this entire final expense platform that's designed right around range at an early part of the conversation. I noticed that other groups out there that have adapted final expense telesales have adapted my concept of range. It makes a huge difference when you give them range. So with that in mind, this brings us to the end of our weekly training. I wanted to keep it under 15 minutes, and I have so far. What's coming up this week? Please comment below on the Facebook page with your questions. I will address every single one of them on our next segment. If you don't want to comment below, send me a direct message. I'll make sure I address the questions. This is going to be going up on our YouTube channel. If you like the video, hit like. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, now's your time to do it. We've been a little dormant with it the last 2 years, but we're going to be making a huge splash out there. Make sure you tune in this Thursday at 10 a.m. for a continuation of this training. We got Brian Tobias tomorrow at 10. We got Andrew and Chris doing their, I forget what they called it, but their super cool Wednesday thing. Joanna's doing some Nat Gen training this week. And then Friday is our agent spotlight of the week. Just so everyone realizes, on Thursday, we're going to go over all of your questions, go over best practices, tips, and strategies that you can use to offer hospital indemnity plans for your clients in a telesales or a face-to-face environment. So with that being said, I appreciate everybody. Thank you so much and take care.